You're listening to the Governors Podcast, which is hosted by school governors for school governors and for all involved in or impacted by education governance. On the Governors Podcast, we have open, honest and transparent discussions about governance in the UK education sector, sharing and providing insights into the realities of entering the boardroom, sitting around the governing board table and leaning in.
Hello, I'm Sharon Warmington and I support schools and academies as a governor, governance practitioner and a clerk. I'm also the founder of the National Black Governors Network, supporting the education sector in diversifying their governing boards.
And it's Olivia D. Hind here, an under 30, unapologetically black female who is changing the face and space of school governance.
And you're listening to the Governors Podcast. Okay, let's get into today's topic.
Okay, so today's topic actually will include a guest, our very first guest to the Governors Podcast. And her name is Jo Phillips. She is a marketing manager for The Key for School Governors and Governor Hub. And just so everyone knows, Governor Hub is also our sponsors. And so we wanted to be able to bring someone from that organization, but also a different perspective.
Oh, we wanted Jo.
Different perspective. That's why we wanted Jo.
Anybody.
Well, she isn't just anyone, because after reading her bio, I am completely blown away. So we definitely wanted someone to come onto our podcast to be able to discuss governance, because we believe it's a fun topic. We are going to introduce Jo and allow her to introduce herself.
Can I just say thank you so much for having me, because I've listened to the podcast. I think it's great. I love what you're both doing, and it's a really nice treat to be the first guest.
Oh, you're so welcome. We're so happy to have you. Thanks for saying yes.
In a previous life, I was a radio journalist, and I've sort of kept with me a love of telling stories. And now I work in the governance space, and so I'm always really interested in the stories around governance. That's a bit of a theme for me. But I joined Governor Hub in 2018.
Okay, nice.
Started off working on their help desk, which I think everyone in the world should work on a help desk. For governors using software, it's interesting. But, the one takeaway is turn it off and on again every single time.
That's your advice to...
That is my advice to anyone using any bit of software, maybe any bit of electrical equipment, but not anything ever.
Yeah, it still works.
It does.
It actually works. I
hold for 10 seconds.
I thought it was a joke before I worked on a help desk, and now I realise it's everything.
It's the catch-all solution.
The catch-all solution. But that was really nice, speaking to governors all day long, and you know, sort of sometimes about governance, because they were sort of working out things, but also just sort of getting to know who governors are, really. So that was good. And now I'm sort of responsible for marketing. So we have a new news website called The Hoot, which
I love that.
We have checked it out. There's so much information there, which is great, and a variety of information as well.
Yeah, we just wanted, because there's so many different places that you could go to try and sort of get informed about sort of education and governance, and we thought, why don't we try and give us one place where it can all go in one place, so you can check that. So that's been our aim, and that's been good fun to try and set up. And we, with the same sort of point of view, we just want to make it a bit light and not feel like it's hard work and worthy and heavy, but somewhere you can sort of go and think, you don't feel like, a really long email that I've got to try and work out what it all means. Or something like that.
Yeah, just to kind of add a bit of spice. That's how I would kind of phrase it. A bit of sprinkle, a bit of seasoning to the governance space, like zhuzh it up a bit. And I love that.
Yeah, because I think, so I've been a governor for 8 years, maybe a bit longer. And I think it's changed. You'll both probably agree. I think it's changed.
Yes, definitely.
More in 8 years. That is huge changes.
Than ever before, yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
we have to keep in our mind that, you know, that the world's changing really fast, and to try
and all the time. Yeah, exactly.
So talking about that change, actually, and yes, I've been in governance. I think I was a parent governor 15 years ago, maybe a bit more. And it has changed significantly. So the one change I don't think has happened so much is the profile of governance in the wider or outside of the education sector. And I know that you were involved in doing a report recently on raising that profile. So how do you think, or what can we do to encourage people to get involved in governance?
I'd agree. It's really hidden, and I find it so frustrating because people don't know, do they? You say I'm a governor, and they think, "Well, is that the PTA?"
That is so true. That is so true.
PTA. And we have got a problem with recruitment and getting sort of younger boards. I know that's something you're really passionate about, Olivia, and getting boards that just are a bit more reflective of society. And how could you can't do that if people don't know what it is. And I think it's a bigger job than we can fix in just governance.
Yes, of course.
I think it's a bit more of a sort of society issue. I think.
Yes.
I don't think it even helps. I know Ofsted recently sort of removed the specific reference to governance, but
oh, really?
In reports, sorry.
Oh, right.
Some time ago. But I think it should be. I think schools should teach kids about governance. I think the DfE should do promotion. I think.
Yes.
But it's really difficult to even get stories about governance out, because I think newspapers are interested in sort of head teacher stories and funding stories, but nobody wants to talk about governance, and that's challenging because we need people to.
It almost sounds like there's the person element is missing, because when you think about talking about governance or what governance is all about, it's based on people, it's based on relationships. When you think about those meetings that you attend, when you think about those strategic bodies that are helping schools to run effectively and efficiently, they are a group of people, and in each of those individuals have a story as to why they're there, or how they got there, or what they've done since being there. And so being able to raise the profile of governance is by getting to hear the voices of the people who are in those spaces. I think that's what we need to kind of shift in terms of our view on it. Governance isn't just this thing that is, unattractive or uninteresting. These are people that are in that space.
And they're ordinary people. I mean, I'm a speaker. I'm a public speaker. I was speaking at an event at, I won't say the name, a multinational, multi-billion-pound organisation last week, and I was talking to their Black Professionals network, which covered the UK, and what I purposely put in my slides, become a school governor.
Oh wow!
And when it was a room maybe of about 30 people, plus it was streamed through their internal WebEx system, and we were talking about their professional development, and I was saying part of your professional development has to be giving back. It has to be, because that will help you to grow in ways that you can't even imagine. And they never even considered it before. There was one, I think, who said that they were a governor, but they've just never considered it before until that point. And when I sort of highlighted all the benefits for them, not even for the school, because sometimes when people want to know what's in it for me. That's the bottom line. They want to know what's in it for me. So I'm giving my time, but what am I going to get from it? So I always go in on, this is what you're going to get from it. And it's about seeing an organization top down, first and foremost, being around the table to strategically plan the direction of that organization, being involved in decisions around a £5 million budget, because even in a multi-billion-dollar organization, you in your department may not be responsible for 100 grand, let alone 5 million. Do you know what I mean? And so when you sort of bring it at that level, then you almost see the light bulb go on and go, oh yeah, I never thought about that. I could build that into my own CPD in my organization, my individual development plans, my performance management reviews, all of that I can build in becoming a governor. And these are the reasons for it. So I think, as you say, we ourselves as governors operating in the space have to be more open about talking about it with others who are not in the space.
I'd agree with that, Sharon. And I'd also say there's a bit which I don't think you realise. So there's all those skills that we talk about. And then there's a bit that I don't think you get until you become a governor, which is a bit more about the humanity of governance.
Yes.
And an example of that would be if I wasn't a governor and I didn't know what my school was doing through the pandemic, and I didn't have a full understanding of what I suddenly realised fully what free school meals were. This was actually something that was in the news, but knowing how worried the school staff were, knowing what they were doing.
Exactly.
For me, I'm a special needs governor, understanding the crisis that is special needs at the moment. It gives you a much broader perspective and an understanding of society as a whole, and you're a better person for that. And that's kind of a hard one to tell people. I think that's something you kind of understand once you've become a governor. You realise, okay, I understand society better now because of that. And in terms of raising the profile, I've sort of joked at work, and maybe this is a good place, that I think what we need is Marcus Rashford, the school governor. If anyone could help us raise the profile of governor.
Because the way he's used his brand or his following to really to invigorate the support for children in education spaces, because the children are coming into that sector all the time, every year, every month, every week. There's children coming into that space, and then they're staying in that space for a huge amount of time, 14, 15, 16, 18 years. And so it's thinking about, I often talk about the journey of the child and thinking of that child. So maybe if Marcus Rashford hears this, he'll be like, there's my call. I'm going to answer to that call.
Marcus, if you're listening, if you could just get in touch with us. But
my email address is.
I think he did more to raise the profile of that issue and cut through all the noise than he just could connect with people in a way that so many of us can't. And
absolutely.
And I think that speaks to probably that marketing aspect, and recognizing that it's about that relational capital. It's knowing who you know and who they know and what can be done. So, but it starts with one person using their voice. It starts with one person using their story and putting themselves out there. Because yes, as a footballer, he has a huge following, but he's in football, but it's him as a person that allowed him to cross over and make that connection with humanity. People. Exactly.
And
that's what humanity. I mean. That relationship's very much what Joe said earlier, and Sharon yourself, Mom. Never know on the episode whether I say Mom or Sharon, but to really build on those relationships or make those connections. I think that's what I love about being a governor. I had no idea before I became a governor that I would meet the people that I have on this journey. But I think once you step in, and I think this links back to what Joe said about, you don't really know about it until you know about it, until you're actually in the space. And that's what we're trying to shift. So I guess it's just trying to speak to people who don't know. So you actually almost need to keep talking to people who don't know, where you feel like you're repeating yourself, because that is needed in order for it to then become normal, so that people can then enter these spaces and be like, wow, I've actually been able to meet all these people. Now, who can I tell? Who can I go and talk to?
And it is amazing. It is amazing that does happen when you've had the experience of when you moved to Manchester, just out at dinner or something, having a conversation with somebody who'd never heard or considered being a governor, who now is operating in that space. And we know people ourselves who, again, never thought about it, but through our posts on social media and stuff like that, they've put their hand up to do it. So I think the more we talk about it, is the
Yes.
more people will, it's almost like planting seeds.
Yes.
Now, those seeds, as my father always says to me, you know, if you want potatoes, you have to plant potatoes. If you want carrots, you have to plant. So you have to plant the relevant seeds. So in
Yes.
terms of governance and governors, we need to be planting those seeds and allow them the time to grow. You will never plant a seed and then you come back tomorrow and it's formed into whatever plant or tree that you want it
takes
to.
time.
So some people, you'll see the shoots straight away. Others,
Yes.
it takes time because they've got to send the roots down first before that you see the plant above the surface. So some people, it may take them 6 months, and that's why I was saying to I was delivering training to a local authority last week actually, and I was saying to the governors there that don't wait until you've got a vacancy.
Yes.
Work with people now, almost have a continuous ad going. And so you've got people coming on all the time that you can be drip feeding into and start to nurture them. And they can attend governing body meetings as observers. There's nothing wrong with that. And you know, you just move all your confidential stuff to the end of the meeting so that they can disappear. But if you can give them the experience, you'll also see how committed they are before they actually make the commitment. And sometimes that's what you want. You don't want to sign somebody in because they've put their hand up and said, oh yeah, I'd like to become a governor, and then you sign them up and they go through the induction and then they don't turn up to meetings, because then that's just a waste of everybody's time.
Yeah, of course. You need that time commitment, which kind of leads on to something else I wanted to get Joe's opinion on, in terms of the fact that being a governor is we are volunteers. So being a school governor, you're not remunerated for the time commitment or even the value investment that you make, because you bring the knowledge that you have, the skills and expertise that you as an individual have learned, developed, honed over the years into that school setting to then support that school at a strategic level. So what are your thoughts around the fact that it's a volunteering role and how we should look at it? Because obviously people are obviously concerned about their time management, whether they have the capacity to be a school governor, and the fact that it's not often talked about. That's not the first truth that they tell you about when it comes to being a school governor. They don't tell you the true amount of time commitment that it could take, requires. And so what would be your take on that?
Yeah, so I've been really informed in my with my governor hat on by some volunteering I've done in another sort of capacity, which is I've done a lot of volunteering with Parkrun, which I don't know if people know. It's a sort of timed, free, weekly. It started off as a 5K run in the park. It's now a 5K run, walk. You know, it's for everybody, and there's a junior event as well. And the organisation, when they started, they thought, we're just a run, isn't this great? And then they gradually realised that the most important bit was the volunteering, and that people were actually getting so much from the volunteering. And it was as important as the run itself, and this bit actually needed to be celebrated. And they asked us to stop saying about volunteers giving up their time and to refer to volunteers giving their time, because actually there is so much to be gained and so much of a difference that you can make from volunteering. So when I sort of moved into becoming a governor, I thought, I don't think we celebrate this enough. I don't think we consider that when we're talking to people, they're here because they care and they want to make a difference. It is a big time commitment, but a lot of people stick with it when it gets tough because they're invested. And I think you can actually talk to people differently when you're talking to someone who's there, it's their job, they've got to do it, versus someone who's actually choosing to spend their evenings, you know, looking through things, learning, this kind of thing. And I think it's really important to consider that the motivation is completely different, and most of us are doing it because we want to make a difference in whatever small way we can.
That is so true.
I agree with that.
I do. I particularly love the looking at the words that we use. I'm very much someone who is conscious of the words that I use, because I say words carry weight. And so thinking of the change from giving up their time to giving their time, and recognizing it's an investment, you are gaining so much more. You are going to gain more than you even set out to, or that you may even realize, or that you plan for, because it's not until you push beyond your comfort zone do you actually realize that the space is actually so much wider beyond it. And so that word change is a necessary one, a necessary message to share, and have it create a ripple effect, so that people look at volunteering differently and then can apply what they've learned in one volunteering space, which is what it sounds like you've done, over in a space that is still volunteering. It's just in a different capacity. And recognizing that there's that transferable skills as well. And so everything starts to link. So I definitely really love that point.
I agree as well. And especially when we talk about diversity of age, because we often find that people will say, those at the end of their career have more time. But if we just change from giving up to giving time, then that, I think, brings younger people back into the mix, because they are giving time or investing time.
Investing.
They are investing their time in this space, rather than having it as a deficit kind of thing, like I'm losing something. I think changing the narrative can have a massive impact.
I was going to say the same, really, just that you're not losing anything, and that's why that little language change is important, because you are gaining. And Olivia, when you said you sort of one bit of volunteering is informing the other, I can remember the sort of the usefulness of trying to do safeguarding at junior parkrun, and then safeguarding coming up at a meeting, and then even in my work life, I just feel like you gain so much from understanding other areas, and being able to think about those and use those in other places.
I'm really loving the way this conversation is going, but let's take a short, quick break to hear from our sponsors.
Governor Hub is proud to support the Governors podcast. As a leading provider of online governance support, we know that confident and well-equipped governors bring about positive and meaningful change. So when you've been inspired to do your best by really leaning in on the topics that matter, you can rely on us for the tools to help your board work better, the guidance and training to develop your skills, and a secure online body of evidence for when it matters most. Visit thehoot.news to join us and feel part of something bigger. There was a lovely post I saw on LinkedIn a while ago, Sharon, where someone said, I heard Sharon speak. She told me to become a governor. Did you see that? And I thought, yes, that's so nice.
I was like, oh, wow.
Because that's the seeds, isn't it?
Absolutely. Because she wasn't a member of MBGN. She never came back to me at any point for any support or anything. And then she just popped up and sort of credited me with this thing.
Oh, wow.
Because you never know when you say something where the person is.
Yes.
They could be between, coming to the end of one job, about to start another one and want to settle in, or, there could be stuff going on. But those seeds, it's planting those seeds that I find is the most important thing, rather than, I say it to schools all the time, rather than trying to get somebody in because you've got a vacancy, just continually have it as part of your succession planning. Because how brilliant would it be to have somebody identified now who's not due to join until January 2023? There's less pressure on them, and they've got time to get their head around what governance is, rather than you come in and you're bombarded with all this information and all these meetings. It's really hard.
Can be quite really, overwhelming.
Really absolutely. It can be really, really overwhelming.
And off-putting. That's probably where the
attrition rate, it could be, is really high.
I think we've definitely come back after the break. That was smooth. That's smooth. I'm keeping all of it. So yes, it's definitely worth thinking about in terms of knowing that succession planning starts before someone enters.
Yes.
And it's that kind of warm up. When you think of like exercising, dare I bring fitness into this? But when you think of exercising, you don't just go straight into the workout. There's usually a stretching period, a
Really?
warm up
Is
period. They're supposed to be,
All right, okay.
They're supposed to be. I'm not saying everyone does that.
Clearly, I don't exercise very often.
But you're meant to have that element to prepare the body for the workout that it's about to go through, almost like to start to raise your heart rate. And then once you do the workout, you have a cool down. And so therefore, you can apply that same concept to becoming a governor or entering a new space as an experienced governor, because the moment you enter a new setting, you're a new governor there. So you may have years of experience or decades of experience or whatever, but how you then apply your knowledge to this specific school setting requires processing. It doesn't just happen. And so definitely easing people in, I think that helps. And so the visibility aspect, being more vocal about it, that's definitely something that I believe will support that whole process of, okay, you can come, coax someone in, but not under deception.
My sister's just become a governor and she works in HR. So developing people and bringing people in is kind of, she lives and breathes it in succession planning. And she made me laugh. They recruited a new head teacher. And sort of a week later, she was already talking about sort of where's the next head teacher going to come from, as in we don't want to have, sort of building the talent pool up within the school and how important that is. Yeah. And I was thinking that's what I think can be overlooked in school governing boards.
Yes.
So if everyone was hit by a red bus, you just need to have that, as Sharon says, just those people who are on their journey and coming in and developing all the people on your board. I know you guys have talked about this before as well, but it makes such a difference.
It really does. It really does. So just in terms of you bringing that element of head teachers and HR and bringing people in, thinking about the people who are already there, the senior leaders that are already there, because new governors come in, but you don't always, you do have situations where you have a new head teacher and the board has already been constructed, formulated, they're already there. So they actually watch a school leader leave and then a new one come in. But most of the time it's the governors that are new and you already have your senior leadership team in place. So what would you say could be a head teacher's approach to how they view governors, how they view school governors, how they can make the best use of governors, or especially new ones coming in and navigating that whole process? Because I know that head teachers often have a relationship with the chair of the local governing body or governing body, depending on the school setting you're in. But when you think of the governing body, it works as one. It's not just the chair and the other people are minions. We're not in Despicable Me here, but it's just looking at how you've got the whole group and how the senior leaders can work with that body of expertise, of support.
I feel I should say as part of this, I'm not a governance expert.
And that's great.
Like, I don't think I'll ever be. I think there's so much to learn.
No, yeah, exactly that.
But head teachers, I think I'm always really impressed with head teachers. I think they're really passionate people. I don't think you get to that role unless you've got something about you. I would just hope that the best head teacher is someone who can kind of take feedback and take criticism and take challenge, because I think when you can have questions and people feel they can ask those questions and it can be really open and honest, I think that's when the good stuff happens. We held a webinar at Governor Hub recently with Vic Goddard, who's a head teacher a co-principal down in Essex. He was on Educating Essex some time ago. And this was about sort of head teacher wellbeing from a governor's chair's point of view. And he said something that I never thought of before, which I thought was quite interesting. He said, I feel guilty to my governors. And that's because of the time commitment they give up, because of he didn't want to burden them particularly by saying he was struggling at that point in the pandemic. And it was just an interesting point of view I hadn't thought of. I'm so used to thinking of it in terms of the school and in terms of the governing board, but actually thinking that head teachers have had a difficult time.
Definitely.
In the pandemic, they've been, it's been challenging for them.
Yes.
And actually understanding that they probably appreciate the role of those people sitting around the table.
Yes.
And value it, and potentially sometimes feel guilty about what we're giving was just quite interesting to me.
That's a brilliant point. I would say from my experience of the head teachers I've worked with whilst I've been a governor, very much your point about the best head teachers can take criticism, can take advice, can hear and process a variety of ideas. I've seen that because sometimes when you ask a question that would be considered a challenging question, but the right kind of challenge. I think I've actually heard head teachers saying, thank you for asking that. I actually appreciate that question because I never thought of it in that way, or that's a really good point, or I don't have an answer, but this is what I would think we would want to do, or they do have an answer, but you can see that they've registered the question in a positive way, in a way that will lead to progress, rather than feeling offended that we don't believe that they're doing everything they can and there's no room for improvement. Because I think an effective head teacher recognizes that they are still in a teaching environment of which they can still learn new things.
I was just going to say that the term eternal student, I find the most effective head teachers are those that view themselves as an eternal student, meaning they are always willing to learn. Going back to the well-being aspect, as clerk, I was always very conscious of where my head teachers were at. And always offered, I'd send a WhatsApp or a text just to check in on them, because heads operate in this almost no man's land. They are completely responsible for the whole school, staff, students, everybody, and they are accountable to the governing board. And so they almost operate in a no man's land. It's very isolating.
Yes, I can
imagine.
So,
as part of when I'm clerking, I make sure that they know that half the stuff I probably won't even know what they're talking about because it's operational. But if they want somebody to talk to, and I do have one of my heads in particular, we've spent half an hour, 45 minutes on the phone, and I've just been listening to them speak because they just needed to offload, and it's like, thanks, Sharon, I don't need you to do anything, but that's really helped, and sometimes that's what they need. They need to know that somebody is there for them as well, and that not just that they're accountable to, or they're always being challenged on this, that, and the other, but just somebody that they can talk to.
This was a point that Vic made really well, just about that sort of ability to be able to listen sometimes. Without sort of actually saying, and now do this and now do that, just to sort of, in times of real challenge, just to be able to receive information like that.
That's brilliant. I like how we're really thinking about the school, because when you think, I think that comes from our respective backgrounds, having experience as being a governor. The school is made up of so many different components. And when you think of the head teacher, that's the leader of that school. And when you think of the governance term, the fish rots from the head, or that's a book that is centered around governance, you have to take care of the top of the organization so that they can take care of the leadership team, which the leadership team then takes care of their respective areas, and it filters down to then make sure that the children are getting the best service possible. I think that's how organizations are often run. When you think of corporate organizations, if you do not look after your staff, your employees, then they won't have the same care or compassion or desire to change positively or interact or have effective communication with the customers and the clients, because they don't feel valued. So then it's harder for them to then be able to pass on that value to the customers. So you may want your customers to get better service, but the only way they'll get better service is from having better treatment of the employees, of the staff in the organization, so that it can be fed down. Because that head teacher, I've heard a head teacher say, I cannot answer every email that comes from parents. I cannot, I am a human being first. I cannot physically respond to everything that goes on in that building. That's why they have deputies. The deputies cannot respond to everything that the head teacher cannot. That's why you have assistant head teachers. The assistant head teachers cannot respond to everything. That's why you then have your middle leaders. A maths teacher is not going to answer an English question from a student. So it's recognizing that everyone plays their part, but all parts make the sum. And that's where you have to be able to start from the head and work down so that you can get the results that you want at the other end.
Yeah, sorry. I think that is something that should be replicated at a strategic level as well.
Yes.
Because a lot of times there is a heavy reliance on the chair.
Yes, that's a strong point.
The chair has to be the one who makes sure that they read all the papers and all that, and literally carry the meeting, sometimes on their backs, because other governors are very passive in that situation. And we have to stop doing that as well. We can't come to those spaces being passive. We have to carry, a shovel or a bucket or a hose or something, bring something to the table. Don't just bring yourself, bring something to the table that can contribute to building the strategic plan of that organization moving forward.
Building the culture, the kind of culture that you want in that space, so that it's fed into all areas. So, Jo, we are going to lead you into the final part of our episodes, which is the takeaways. So would you like to lead us by going first on anything that you would take away from our conversation today, or how I see it is like homework? Is there anything that I should hold myself accountable to do following the ideas that have come out from the conversation? But it's really up to you if there's something you've learned or something you want to do.
I think the point Sharon made about seeds, I think everyone in governance, I know it's bigger than us, but actually we've all got a responsibility to try and spread the word. So for anyone who's listening, you need to recruit 5 more people. But it's true. I think we need to talk about it more and talk about the benefits and talk about what we gain and talk about what we learn and talk about the humanity and talk about what we learn about society and why that's important. And that it's not just about reading some papers and going to a meeting.
Of course. I agree with that. I like that.
My takeaway is the time, giving time. I'm going to use that in my presentations. Yeah,
I think you hijacked mine.
Yeah, well, that's why I said it first. Because I knew that you were going to take that one.
I was going to go for that one because midway through that episode, I already really snatched that one. But no, it's but that's a solid one. Anything else, or is that is it? That is the one.
That is the one. I'm a big time management kind of person, so my time is very valuable. But I think giving time, approaching it from that viewpoint, giving time, not just in terms of governance, but giving time to this project. Making sure that I'm committing to that, giving time to replanting my plants, making sure I'm good. You can sort of use it in every aspect of your life, really, approaching it from a positive rather than a negative. Oh, I've got to do this or I've got to do that. Or no, I'm going to dedicate 2 hours to read my papers today. That sort of shifts the mindset, I think, in the approach. And so, I took it further than that. Go ahead, Liz.
Okay. I like those. I think I like those so much. Mine is probably going to be a combination of what you both have said in terms of understanding the true purpose of being a school governor. I liked the very early point that Jo made about seeing it society-wide rather than just in education, rather than just as a governance thing, but recognizing that it's something that there are principles And they are principles that can actually be taught to the youngest in society when you think about it. It really struck a nerve when you said that this should be in schools. Students should know about what governance and governors are all about, and trustees. Who is that body? What does strategic and effective leadership look like, feel like? So that when they then come to leave school, they have a better understanding of what school was all about. So they're digesting school in different ways at different levels. And then looking at the time element from Mum's point in terms of how society uses their time to invest in relationships with others. And so you start off with your relationship with yourself. What am I doing on a purpose level? Why am I doing this? How can I do more? Is this serving me, my growth, and the growth of other people? But then also, what can I do so that other people can move forward? Because when you think of legacy building, legacies are often realized when that person has gone. But we can actually formulate that structure, that legacy from when you're living, because we're all here living side by side in society. So it's looking at how we use our time so that all of us can kind of evolve in our own respective ways. So I definitely believe that would be my takeaway, to continuously evaluate how I use my time and what I believe my purpose is, and how I'm showing that, how I'm demonstrating that, how I'm executing that. So, yeah.
I'd like to take the time to thank Jo so much for being on this journey with us as our first guest speaker. We've got a professional relationship going on, and so we will support you in anything that you're doing, and I definitely know that that Governor Hub and the Key for Governors do that as well for us. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me, and I look forward to hearing who you're going to have next. And these conversations are great because I think you get to the bits of governance that other people don't talk about, and that is really good and really useful.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that feedback. Brilliant. So off to the next episode.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please rate, review, and subscribe via your preferred streaming platform. The Governors Podcast is a brand of the legal entity Education Governance Solutions Limited, and a free training resource for anyone. So if you know someone who is interested in becoming a governor or a trustee, please share this podcast with them. And if you'd like to get in touch with us directly with questions or comments, then drop us an email at thegovernorspodcast@gmail.com.
You can also follow us on social media platforms at The Governors Podcast. Let's connect.